Hey, everybody, this is Mike Troxel with Journey Through Proverbs, and I just wanted to welcome you to our study today of Proverbs chapter 3, verse 27 and 28. That's what the next portion of what we're going to look at. Found these two verses to be very interesting. It's a couple of items, just a couple quick thoughts on them. I want to read it. It says, "Do not withhold good from those who deserve it, when it's in your power to help them. If you can help your neighbors now, don't say, 'Come back tomorrow, and then I'll help you.'" So just a couple quick thoughts. One, it says, "Don't withhold good from those who deserve it." I find it fascinating that it uses the language of those who deserve it. So there is a concept that is presented about needy, deserving poor. So there are individuals who work really hard, who try to get to improve their life. They are responsible, et cetera, and they've just not gotten ahead. They've had bad situations in life. They inherited bad situations. Maybe they don't have enough financial intelligence education at that point to really know how to change their situation. And they're working hard and they're trying to improve, but they still struggle because they're working with a load of a lifetime of habits and inheritance of ideas that they got from parents and grandparents and society around them and their friends and neighbors. And those individuals, they struggle and they face difficult situations, and they are deserving of help. They're working hard to do that. That's a different type of class of individuals than individuals I would have come to my church when I pastored years ago. I've had this many, many different times in multiple cities around the country. And they would come to my church and they would tell me, "Oh, Pastor, we just broke down. We've been stuck for the last 2 days, and we can't feed our family. We can't have the money to get home." And I would talk with them and I would ask a bunch of questions, and I would come to find out in the process of asking questions, they were lying to me about the story. So in actuality, what they've been doing is they were going around from church to church and they were scamming the churches and playing on the compassion and the sense of Christian kindness and generosity that we believe in as Christians, that the Bible teaches, and that's actually in this passage we're looking at today. And they use that to their advantage to take advantage of the sensibilities morally of Christians in the churches. Those are not deserving poor. And I would send them away every single time empty-handed, because I was not going to give a handout to someone who was going to lie to me and try to manipulate and use me and try to use the Bible and its principles against me. God does not do that. Jesus didn't do that when he walked on the earth. And that's certainly not the counsel that Solomon gives. So we give money. I only have a limited amount of money that I can give. Each individual church congregation has a limited, finite amount that they would have to give. So you have to determine, who are you going to give it to? So instead of giving it to someone who is manipulating and lying to get it and to use you and to misuse you, abuse you, there are so many other, when you give to them, that means you have less or none to give to somebody else who actually is in need, who has a genuine need, who's not manipulating and trying to use people and use deception to get money and abuse you, but in fact are working hard to be responsible and provide for them families and themselves. And those are the kind of individuals that I choose to give to. That's what Proverbs talks about here, is giving to those who actually deserve it. But here's the next point. It says, "Do not withhold good." So when you see someone who is genuinely in need, and part of humanity, this is not even just a Christian principle, a biblical principle, this is a human principle, is that sense of compassion to other people who are struggling, who are suffering, who are in a needy situation, maybe have had a calamity, an earthquake, a tidal wave, a hurricane, tornadoes, whatever it happens to be, or a fire, and you see that sense of compassion. Maybe they broke down on the side of the road and they're stuck and stranded. There's a lot of situations that I didn't even mention that would fall into that category of need. And your heart should be drawn out to other people. That's part of what Proverbs talks about, is as you grow in your experience, as you expand your life, you expand your means to help people, to also encourage and nurture those compassionate sensibilities, excuse me, for other individuals when they're in need. So don't withhold good. Give to people when they have need, but don't give what you don't have. And that's where it says, "Do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it's in your power to help them." So I understand people sometimes will listen to a sermon at a church. They will hear a program on TV. They will see something on social media, and they'll feel compelled internally that they have to do something to act to give money to help serve someone and to help someone, but they don't have any money. They're barely even putting food on the table for their family and barely surviving and struggling with their debts, their bills, and hardly able to survive. That's not what this passage is talking about. It's talking about when it's in your power to help or to do good. This is why Proverbs talks a lot about the place of wisdom in expanding our financial situation to grow us. And as we looked at the other day, earlier in Proverbs chapter 3, it says that wisdom brings riches and wealth in its left hand. And that's a very important concept, is that the more wealth we have, the less debt we have, or we're able to pay more debt we pay off, and the more freedom we have, the greater resources we have to be able to help people. So when those sensibilities, really strike us of compassion and empathy and sympathy for people, and we want to reach out and help them, then we have the ability to do that, and we aren't just left with guilt for one of two reasons. One, because they didn't have enough money and had to choose not to help someone when I really wanted to, and I felt they needed it. Or two, when I did help someone, and as a result, I don't have enough money to put food on the table for my family, my wife and my kids, or whatever your situation is. So you could end up with guilt in multiple ways. And that's not a plan of what the Bible wants you to live with. It wants us to be, God wants us to be compassionate. He wants us to be tender. He wants us to be loving and generous to people. But in order to be able to do that, we have to manage our money wisely. We have to grow our financial intelligence to be able to increase our wealth, limit our debt, so we have a greater freedom in life to be able to serve other people who are in need when those situations are presented to us. And then the last verse there, it said in verse 28, if you can help your neighbor now, don't say, come back tomorrow and then I'll help you. And this often happens. I've heard this in churches so many times, and individuals will plead their case, presented in a prayer request to church, that I'm struggling with such and such. I had a fire or whatever. And so we'll say, oh, I'll pray for you. If you need anything, let me know. Well, obviously they needed something because they said they did. And they talked about their struggle and their situation, but yet people are putting it off because they don't really want to step out and help. Maybe it's because they don't have the means to be able to help, or maybe it's because they just are uncomfortable to do that. This passage indicates that if you could help someone now, if they're stuck on the side of the road and they can't get their car fixed and they're stranded, that's the ideal time to help them, not tomorrow, after they've had to spend a night maybe in freezing cold weather or other bad situations that could happen. It's the time to help them now. Don't put it off. Help them today. And if you help today, then you're going to have a good feeling about yourself. You're going to have a building of a better relationship with that individual. And you're going to be able to have stories to tell that will be something that will encourage other people and be a great example for them. And besides, if you're an adult and you have children, it can be an outstanding example you leave to your children, a legacy of compassion to other individuals.